Right about there.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's much time left. Then you should be doing board because we're gonna do these next things. These three things are still you. And then. And then we have you. There's like her statistics. She just never had any answer. She tended to.
I was like, I don't even need that video, but oh, I do.
Yeah.
Okay, President Joyce, we're all set. We're recording.
Alrighty, so we're gonna continue with the compounding rules discussion. You wanna go ahead, Gary?
In reruns, yeah.
Executive Director Runyon will continue the compounding conversation with section 1830520. Recalls. Parent 1, each drug outlet pharmacy, DIPDO, CF, and CHC that determines a recall is warranted must immediately issue a recall and immediately initiate communication with each recipient drug outlet, prescriber, and patient receiving the recalled drug that was dispensed or intended for use in the state and document each attempt. Initial communication must be completed A, within 12 hours of the recall. If use or exposure to the recalled compound will cause serious adverse health consequences or death. If confirmation that the recipient received the communication cannot be established within this time frame, the outlet must make 2 additional attempts to provide communication within 24 hours of the initial attempt. B, within 36 hours of the recall, if use or exposure to the recalled compounded drug might cause temporary or medically reversible adverse health consequences, or where the probability of serious adverse health consequences is remote. If confirmation that the recipient received the communication cannot be established within this time frame, the outlet must make 2 additional attempts to provide communication within 24 hours of the initial attempt. And 2, if the recalled drug is not likely to cause adverse health consequences, the recipient drug outlet, prescriber, or patient receiving the recalled drug that was dispensed or intended for use in the state must be notified within 72 hours of a recall, and the outlet must document the notification. And 3, in the event that all attempts to inform the recipient are unsuccessful, in 1, the outlet must send notification via certified mail. 4, a drug outlet pharmacy, DIPDO, CF, or CHC that has been advised that a patient has been harmed by using a compounded product potentially attributable to the outlet must report the event to MedWatch within 72 hours of the outlet being advised. And parent 5, the board must be notified of a recall in 1, on a form provided by the board within 10 business days of issuing the recall. President Joyce.
All right, so I'll start off this discussion with board member Kroger.
I have feelings about this section, but they're not fully formulated or researched. It makes sense, right? We want to notify patients if there's a recall. I think there's probably significant discussion on what should be done. That's why it's in this rule. It's a lot to read through, right? All different scenarios. I think when I go back to the policies and procedures above, we've got the recall procedure. This reads as a recall procedure to me. If I was an outlet, I would probably just copy and paste what's in here in my procedure, which doesn't necessarily make a ton of sense to me. And then just for board consideration, the board must be notified of a recall in a form provided by the board within 10 business days of issuing the recall. Every scenario of recalls, there could be some that I don't know if the board really wants that level of notification in every circumstance. Obviously, if there's going to be patient harm or what, the most significant types of recalls, but I think there's probably a lot of scenarios that the board would receive notification that it just would be an administrative burden for the board itself to deal with. So I'm maybe a bit more specific on which recalls the board must be notified about. And then I'd like more public input on this in general, if this actually makes sense in practicality. And I think that's all I have to say at this time. Thank you.
Member Smith.
Board Member Smith, no comments at this time.
Member Hall,
Member Hall, in, parent 3. In the event that all attempts to inform the recipient are unsuccessful, the outlet must send notification via certified mail. So what if the patient is homeless? That was my question for that one. Maybe we could add something. Or it's like, we have an address or something, I don't know. And then just in parent 5. On a form, I was like, what form? But maybe we don't know the name of the form yet. Okay. It's just kind of a odd on a form. All I have right now, I'm kind of curious about the time frames for some of the less concerning recalls. But yeah, maybe public comment would be helpful with that. That's it.
all right, Board Member Kirkbride,
Yeah, I had kind of the same reaction as board member Kroger. This is a lot. When I look at our current rule, there's one sentence regarding the recall procedure, and that's reported to the board within 10 days. So this is a lot to add if we're trying to go more standard of care. This is the opposite of that. That being said, I'm not well versed enough to know. This very much sounds like it came from somewhere. Like it's very detailed. So
Yeah.
if there is a reference this is coming from that we've already referenced, do we need this? That's all I have.
Board Member Runyon, so where did this language come from? Member Runyon, sorry,
The work group,
the work group.
the work group.
So the work group specified the hours and recall parameters.
Executive Director Runyon, I would personally have to do more research on that. I can't answer that at this moment.
But Board Member Pinero?
Board Member Pinedo, nothing to add.
It's Board Member Joyce. Yeah, I was just curious. Some of this language seems familiar. Me as having been reviewed before. I mean, this specifically. And setting up the parameters, but if this is what the work group concluded to send to the board after a couple of years of meeting. I'm just curious, as everyone else. So, on to you, Board Member Chin.
Board Member Chen, I don't have anything specific about.
Board Member Chen, I don't have anything specific about this, but I hear kind of consistent about, I'd like to know what the public thinks about this. And a lot of the board members might not be aware that we had sent these rules not being ready with the expectation of just getting comments, but people were just freaked out about that they thought this was a rule. And so
I'm not sure what our next steps are gonna be, if it is gonna be, a work group to look at this, to have staff look at this and bring it back, or if we're at some time gonna just send it to rulemaking to just get those comments that we're asking for, without it actually wanting to go to rulemaking. Does that make sense? Right, and no other comments.
Or Patel.
Board Member Patel, no, I do remember there was a robust comments discussion during the work group too. I don't think so. Work group members, they recommend that you have to be this prescriptive and this detail with this hours and minutes and seconds to respond. I don't think so. They were given a choice. So they are like, do you want to report within 36 hours, within 24 hours, within, 50 hours, whatever. So it's like, they say it's like, yeah, our group members recommend, let's say 48 hours, but that was the choice, there was like, we are going to give you a choice and you have to pick one. So I don't, and then you just say like, oh yeah, what group member recommend, that was not the case because I was there. And again, like you're right, our non-compounded section of the rule, it says recall just the one sentence. You have to do recall in the documentation record, whatever. And let's say if we are going to send notification to Board of Pharmacy, there is a recall for this compound, what we are planning to do with that information as a Board of Pharmacy, what we are going to do. That's the one. And I think this whole section needs to be worked up. This is, in practicality, this is not, you can't, it's just not practical. That the whole section is just absolutely not practical. And really want everyone to report, and we also have to report like on every day there is one or two recall in every pharmacy from the manufacturers. Then do we have to recall? Do we have to send notification for that too? There's a patient level. There's 3 levels of the recall, but we don't notify that to Board of Pharmacy. Then why? It's when we have to notify it within 72 hours or 36 hours or 10 days. This is not recommendation by the members. And I don't know what US standards said about the recall. I don't recall all those details, but I don't think so. It was also like in this detail, USB have the recall section.
Board Member Joyce, does anyone have any additional comments? I was gonna comment on this. Seeing none, so are there FDA standards or federal standards on recall? I understand the patient safety factor, if there's a compounded med and there's, the risk for infection or irreversible damage, health consequences. Patient safety wise, you obviously want to get the information dispersed and start the recall process. The parameters, echoing everyone else's sentiment on this, not sure where. If this is work group, is that not the work group? Is that what you're saying? These parameters aren't work group from the work group?
They were given a choice.
Given a choice.
Choice A, B, and C, and then you pick like B, then you just say work group.
Is that the consensus of the work group, basically, then I take it? At that time,
Do remember, yeah, it was,
yeah.
not everyone, but yeah.
Um,
For accreditation and everything, too, they think like they are given a choice, like which entity do you want to use? I mean, it was not even there.
Is it pulled from federal guidance or is it pulled from?
From there?
Executive Director Runyon, sorry to interrupt that. Where's that Melvin just showed me one particular document. It is the work group meeting minutes from July 2023 that may have access to in the iPad. And that may get us somewhere in terms of creating context for how these specific numbers were generated, proposed, how they were submitted to the board and what the board did with that for your reference.
So we took them to the June 2023 board meeting. Sure. Do you want me to? So I just went down memory lane. So we had these came from work group. We brought them to the board and meeting in June 2023. The board had robust discussion on those hours and the realistic, timeline of how this is laid out. And the board asked us to take it back to the work group. So, and that was their last meeting, July 2023. In the minutes, it kind of spells out how they landed on where they landed. And then we presented that to the board again. So I believe that would have been, I can't remember if the board looked at these in October 2023 or if we ran out of time in that meeting. I'd have to look, but you have seen them probably, or that board at the time had seen them at least 2 more times since then.
So,
Member Patel, that's what I said, we might have to have their track to refresh everything. I think this is one of the sections we should have that in the fourth group.
okay, we're gonna continue this discussion and then, potentially, maybe go into executive session to discuss that. Is that accurate? We were considering, RAC conversation, RAC was brought up and as opposed to, group. So do we need to go to executive session to discuss going into RAC or potentially using RAC?
Microphone. I can't hear.
We needed to do it today, we could, but I think the plan is to bring it together.
Okay.
But you don't think we can get any further than all that.
Well, we'll continue the discussion for now and then. Okay, let's move on.
Executive Director Runyon, one thing I'd like to point out, and maybe we could entertain this together. It was brought up that we may not necessarily in this rule be identifying what types of recalls we need to be notified of. In parent 5, it does say the board must be notified of a recall in 1. So if we go up to 1 and look at what's contained in A and B, and we compare that with, let's go to parent 2. It says if the recalled drug is not likely to cause adverse health consequences. So I think that's the difference in between what's in parent 1, A and B, are those things that are likely to cause adverse health consequences at various points in time or under various circumstances, as compared to things that we're not requiring them notify us of in rule, which is 2 through 4. Unless I'm reading that incorrectly. And of course, even in that circumstance, it leaves a lot of ambiguity. But at least preliminarily or on the surface level, we are to some extent identifying what types of recalls that we are required to be notified of.
Board Member Patel, and this is recall is a whole new section added, right? I mean, they had the recall previously, let's say I'm talking about like 5 or 6 years ago, and it was like 1 or 2 sentences, but this is all new because it was not there.
But only that. Only this rule. Board Member Patel, this is our current rule. This is what you're referring to, right? The recall right here, what I had highlighted, the recall procedure.
Where is on the top?
This is in 855-045-0220.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
your personal and responsibility, right?
Yeah.
Then we are going to add this whole new section on recall with in detail, like it looks like a standard operating procedure for some organization, right? The one sentence there.
Yeah.
This is whole new section.
This is board member Jen, and I'm the public person. Seeing the detail of what we're doing to try to protect the public with the 12 and the 30, with what A and B makes sense public facing. And I have no idea what's in USP or FDA or it's Rachel's ABCs. You just know that public facing, that makes sense. If public's looking at how am I protected?
Any additional comments on this section? I mean, I want to echo board member Chin's comments, this is patient safety. These rules seem to spell out a sense of urgency as to 10-day rule.
Or a 10-day form.
Or me, exactly. I mean, you have, compounded batch medication that was sent out to the public or whatnot. And it needs to be recalled. Like these parameters, I'm not sure. I mean, I think, from an outsider's lens, this spells out the urgency, but. Go ahead.
Board member Kroger, I appreciate the view. I think that's a really good call out to also understand, hey, it's not just licensees that are gonna be looking for these rules potentially. I still feel like this language is problematic and is a bit more of a policy and procedure than it needs to be. I think we can still get to a good place with, making sure that the public understands what we're doing to protect them. But even if I think about the situation in 1B, initial communication must be completed within 36 hours to the recalled compounded drug might cause temporary or medically reversible adverse health consequences. To me, should it be done sooner than that? If it, right? Like, so, but we as a board went out and it's like, no, you've got 36 hours, you've got 3 days to take care of this. Then as I continue reading it and it says, or where the probability of serious adverse health consequences is remote. That mean like, yeah, like, and I think it's vague. It's not, I think, at this time worded in a way that I think could be practically applied. However, I said I had feelings on this. I haven't fully formulated them. I'd like to get input from others. And because I think this is a really important aspect, when you think of the Massachusetts compounding disaster, if you will, I'm not sure, that was awful. No board wants to have that happen in their state, and no pharmacist says we want to avoid that. And we totally get that, why these standards have been updated and our role we play here. But I think that this needs to be massaged a little bit more to strike that right balance when it comes to practicality and ensuring that it is really the right thing to do for patient safety. Because this, I think, is still confusing. And I think when things are confusing, it makes it less safe ultimately for those who are using these rules. So, but I
disagree at all.
But I appreciate, and I think that is also recognizing why boards have public members is to continue to reorient us as licensees on this isn't just about, us with, you know, who are in the pharmacies, that there's the citizens of Oregon who we're protecting. You know, so thank you, Kat. I appreciate you chiming in on that interview.
This is Board Member Patel, but with that rule 36 hours, that means, you know, what we are asking to all the compounding pharmacy, that they have to have someone 24/7. What if it's the weekend? What if it's a 3 days, you know, long holidays? Then what?
Do you propose, like a language change or as soon as possible? Or,
Because see, when we talk about recall, right, how many recalls we get in pharmacy every day by manufacturers? I would say minimum 1 to up to 10. Always get those recalls, say whoever work in the retail pharmacy, like you get recalls from manufacturers. Do we tell Board of Pharmacy there's a recall? Do we start calling patient? No, you know, then why you trying to treat that one is like, no, you have 36 hours, you have 1 day to respond. And that's what, and when you say like bring out the message, you said, I know that was very unfortunate. Shouldn't happen. But you also have to understand it was not 503A facilities either. It was like, so I'm just saying like this one is great. Yes, it's public safety, but on the paper looks great. Practicality, they're asking our licensee them not to compound anything, and we get everything from Florida and, you know, Arizona and other out of state, or you have to take a financial burden staffing someone 24/7.
anything else from us? This section? No?
Executive Director, and I think that should suffice for that section. So we'll move to plenty to work with, and happy to do. We'll move to 1830550. It's records general requirements. Just read the rule. In addition to record keeping and reporting requirements of OAR 855, the following records must be maintained. Number one, all dispensing of CNSPs and CSPs. 2, any other records required to conform to and demonstrate compliance with USP standards and federal law. 3, required records include, but are not limited to, A, standard operating procedures, including documented annual review. B, personnel training according to the type of compounding performed, competency assessment and qualification records, and corrective actions for any failures. The outlet must maintain a training record for each person, including temporary personnel who compound preparations or supervise the preparation of compounds. C, engineering and environmental control records, including equipment, calibration, certification, environmental air and surface monitoring procedures and results, as well as documentation of any corrective actions taken. And D, cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting of all compounding areas and equipment. E, receipt, handling, storage, and disposal of components. F, master formulation records for all CNSPs, CSPs prepared for more than one patient, CSPs prepared from a non-sterile ingredient, compounding records for all CNSPs, CSPs, and immediate use CSPs prepared for more than one patient, and release testing, in-product evaluation, and qualitative testing. Number 4, information related to complaints and adverse events, including corrective actions taken. And finally, 5, results of investigations, including corrective actions taken and recalls. President Joyce, I'll turn it back to you.
Alrighty, starting off with Board Member Smith.
Board Member Smith. No further comment. I don't know if there's much I can add to this.
Jerry, you want to add to this?
I just had a question for Board Member Smith on the qualitative testing. You were talking about how you do send stuff out to get tested. Is that what that's being done is the qualitative testing?
And they trying to look further exactly what the definition is. I know we do send stuff off to get tested, to keep in compliance with, like our accreditation and things like that. But I'm not exactly sure what the specific title of that testing is, or like who is needing that testing to keep us accredited and all the
I
specifics.
was just curious.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Member Hall?
Overhaul, or VA, just the, part where it's including documented annual review. Know if must be from USP, I'm assuming, and then we have other like protocols and whatnot that need to be looked at every 2 years. So I didn't know if that was something that we chose or if it was just pretty referenced. And just the same thing with the release testing. Still having trouble grasping who's required to do that. And struggling with that for a while at our current institution that I work at, so. That what we're expecting of all no requirements for records, all dispensing of non-sterile and sterile compounds. So I just want to know what that looks like. Don't know. That's it.
Board Member Kirkbride?
It's easier to digest than our current rule regarding records and compounding. It appears like the current rule tries to combine some labeling stuff and some record stuff, and so in that regard, this seems a little bit easier to follow and less prescriptive in some of the bullet points. Those are my only comments.
Board Member Pinheiro?
Board Member Pinheiro has nothing to add.
Board Member Joyce, this looks like standard practice to me. The only question is, the same as everyone else's, the qualitative testing. Otherwise, I mean, I wish there was a way to say per USP on some of these rules, required records include, but not limited to, standard operating procedures included document. Yeah, I mean, per USP, maybe a referencing of that. So we know what is the work group and what is USP initiated. That's just visually, that I'm trying to reconcile the two, if we're saying per USB, okay, it's here, but then what else does the board want to add? Otherwise, that's it. Merchant
Jen has nothing to add.
or Patel?
All right, the whole section again. It already says in compliance with USP standard and federal law, right? Then why we are going to write down more in detail prescriptive? Does not make any so much repetitive about that engineering and environmental control records and all other things. This is unnecessary. Just say general requirement, follow USP standards and federal law. This section. I mean, we already doing that. We already stated that. why we are adding all other nonsense duplicating on the top of it. Like, does not make any sense to me.
Board Member Kroger?
Board Member Kroger. So the first, in addition to the record keeping and reporting requirements of OAR 855, are we missing something here?
Executive Director Runyon, I did notice that and,
Just all
both
of it.
was hoping we were and hoping we were not. I can't answer that.
So that's fine. I think just highlighting that my general concerns of hunting for what am I required to do? If I, like, say I'm only a compounding pharmacy, right? Like, so that's one. The dispensing of CSP, and SPs and CSPs, I feel like that goes without saying. We need to be keeping dispensing records, period. Does it need to be specifically called out here? Just throwing it out there. Number two, I think in other parts of the rules, we start off with, you know, demonstrating compliance with USB standards and federal law. Typically, that is kind of how we start the rule, like in addition to the requirements of federal law and USP standards, then this, but this is kind of, now it's like current, you know, para 2 or whatever you say. So I don't know if that could be, so it's uniform in each one of these sections if we are going to require reference to USP standards. The training records, it's feeling repetitive again within the whole rule. And then this is kind of my initial gut. For the C, the environmental control records, I think maybe if applicable should be included on that, because that will not be applicable for all sites compounding. And I think it's in the part where that is addressed in the policies and procedures, it's implied that it would only be applicable in certain situations. So let's make sure that's clear here. In part E, the disposal of components, I think that the word components is a bit too vague. Just compounded products, you know, items used in the preparation of compounding, whatever that is, but components I think is really broad in general, maybe a bit too broad. And master formulation records for all, I'm a little confused on, you need a master formulation record for non-sterile, sterile prepared for more than one patient, and sterile prepared from a non-sterile, but we don't need a master formulation record for sterile preparation for one patient. That was of 2 sterile products. I just feel like there was something missing there. Not my area of expertise, but that just seemed. And then my other question is, we start using the language prepared for more than one patient. Earlier in the rule, we mentioned batch language, so I don't know if we want to try and keep that uniform or if there is a difference between what we're saying here. Same for the compounding records. The immediate use prepared for more than one patient, should that be batch? And then for 4 and 5, information related to complaints. I have concerns on that. That is, I think, much too broad. Complaints. Hey, my compound took, you know, an extra date. Like, what complaints? What is really in the best interest of patient safety? Not all complaints would rise to that level where a record would need to be maintained for that. And then the results of investigations, including corrective actions taken and recalls. I think this would be more appropriate to say the results, like, of in the outlet's investigation of what, like, what situation are we talking about here? And making sure that that's also very clear, because I'm sure there's all sorts of different internal investigations that occur in these pharmacies. And corrective actions as well, whether it's a CQI plan, but I think we need to make sure that this is very clear on what is actually expected. If it says referencing investigations around recalls or products, bad products or something, that makes sense, but this is a really broad requirement for record retention. So that's all. Thank you.
This board president Joyce, anybody else have any additional comments? Those are all very good comments, Victoria. Anybody else? Okay. So, looks like you got quite a bit. Was there anything else you wanted to expand on in this section?
Executive Director Runyon. So it might be prudent to take the last few minutes before we move on and switch gears here to kind of discuss what we all, or what you envision as next steps and what makes sense to you and how staff can carry that process forward, et cetera. I think we have some options too in terms of procuring feedback for the without going through some of the steps that board member Chen had mentioned earlier. I don't know if staff member Efremoff, if you want to add anything to that, or AG Hunt, in terms of our approach to getting that feedback was mentioned. Or
Well, I'm not quite sure where you guys were at in the process. I know like a notice was issued, but it wasn't a notice of intent to rule make, or was it a notice of, I don't know what happened back in the beginning.
Staff member Melvin, I can just fill you in on that. So in that resources folder that I mentioned earlier, all of the public comments that were received were put in a huge PDF.
What was the notice that was issued?
The notice was, we had other rules that they actually were adopting that we noticed for rulemaking hearing. We noticed it, created Division 183, sent it out, and all of our labeling just said with the board does not intend to adopt these rules. They were seeking public comment only on the fiscal, on the rules itself, just any comment they could get. We received all the comments, compiled everything together, reviewed everything, adjusted the rules where we thought it made sense, presented the rules back to the board. And then we kept revising the rules back and forth between the committee, the work group rather, back to the board, back to the work group. Board would make suggestions, they would make suggestions back and forth.
Before it went to the work group? Or you
No,
noticed it
then-
after.
Yes, there was already a good version of rules and the board wanted the public's assistance in comments on everything that was presented at that time. So
I would need to, that would be something I would need to look into further, or we would need to go into an executive session. But
yeah, so they just motioned to notice them and then we just didn't adopt anything. That makes sense?
so did the public comment period close?
Yes, we aligned it with the other rules that were being considered for adoption.
Public comment period is closed.
I can show you the notice.
Once public comment period is closed, you're no longer able to take public comment. So if you, so I guess in theory,
That's why we noticed.
vote to withdraw the notice and start over. But you can't, once public comment period is closed on rulemaking, you're not allowed to I guess you could,
I'd have to renotice it
I
again.
think you have to renotice it,
Yes,
but I think they'd have to withdraw the prior.
even though
It's
it's
a way to extend public comment, but I don't know how you do it when it was so long ago.
exactly because it's
I'm wondering, I know we started kind of talking about this without everyone getting the benefit of the goal that we're trying to achieve here is we hear the boards resounding, would like more public comments. This is a different version. There have been many things that have changed. And as you might see, when people are compromising and piecemailing things together, sometimes things get lost or sometimes words get lost, or how is it affecting the public today and what maybe got lost that needs to be there or what's there today doesn't need to be there. And that it's really important to have that public feedback. So we're trying to find the best route and what options there are because of the unique circumstance that this was already noticed. for public comment and trying to see if there's more flexibility, so we don't have the rigidity of having to go through filing Secretary of State and then all of those processes, then the limited amount of time that things have to be heard and how they have to be handled. There's more flexibility if it was a draft as opposed to already proposed. So we're trying to kind of figure out if there is a different approach we could take that would be better, and hearing some of the feedback that other boards are doing in California, thank you, Board Member Kroger, in ways that we might be able to make the process easier and more succinct for you to review too. So our goal is to try to get more public feedback. I think we need to do a little bit more research, but wanted to see if that's kind of where the board is at on this, and we could, you know, keep you abreast of kind of where the next steps are. And I don't know what Executive Director Runyon's big plan is or vision, and how you would like to do this, but seeking board input in how this would be something you would like us to do.
I guess maybe it would be better to talk about what they want, and then for the next board meeting, I can come up with a plan of how to execute it. So that we don't misstep the rulemaking process.
They need to.
Yeah, we're already
They need to finish reviewing these.
Right.
They're gonna send them in for comment.
Should we go?
Yeah. Right, ask for what they would prefer.
Oh, yeah, I'll go around. Board Member Hall, what is your preference, in regards to direction?
Member Hall, so we're wondering if we would put this forth as is to the public. Is that what we're asking, as opposed to seeing edit first and then putting it out there? I guess, I mean, we're not all the way through this document yet, but I think we should try to make some edits first and then put it forth.
Board Member, Kirkbride?
Well, I respect the work that's previously been done on this. It's a lot. And I appreciate that. We are in a different time. So I think this board needs to make some edits before we seek public comment. And I think particularly with an eye to standard of care and cleaning up some of the things we've seen as a recurring theme as we've had our comments. I think we do that, and then we send out a new draft of this time and age, this board, for public comment. And I don't think we need to do a RAC or a work group. I think that is going to take too long. I think we have a lot of good input and a good place to start. I think it just needs fine-tuned for this time.
Board Member Pineda?
Board Member Binetto, I second what Board Member Kirkbride said. And I feel like what other board members, this is a lot, it's a lot of new things, a lot of things that have changed since these were written. And I don't want to put it out to the public until everything has been gone through and, you know, we feel comfortable for being responsible for the changes that are happening.
That's Board President Joyce. So the work group started on this back in 2023. What I see, now is a good base of information that does need to be tweaked. And so I do support additional edits at this time, but I also I'm along with the sentiment of not needing any additional RAC or work group. I think we can make these edits and as we go and hopefully come to a consensus and get this going into rulemaking. Board Member Chin.
Member Chin, I think that there were a lot of comments that the board staff have work cut out to make some changes to the current document before it goes out for any kind of comment. Um, I think right now I'm kind of in agreement about whether or not a work group or a rack. I think depending on maybe what the public comments come back, if that would trigger a change of heart or marks we've missed, as a group here. But I'd like to see us work on, how much more is left of this? So somebody noted, we haven't even gotten to it.
All right, we need to go there.
Executive director running, so it looks like we've probably gotten through a quarter of the, or we have a quarter remaining, sorry.
Oh.
Yeah.
Freudian slip there.
So perhaps about a quarter remaining in Division 183, but we also have to go through the other divisions that reference the compounding, which should be a lot cleaner, a lot quicker, and especially once we agree to some sort of this.
I would like to see, board staff take comments, and bring this back and see if we can get through the whole document, before we consider public consumption.
Board Member Patel.
Remember Patel, I mean, we already sent this rule without doing revision 1, 2, and 3, and then we got the public comment, and here we are. So at this point, I think we should make edits, try to make more sense to us and to licensee, and then send out for the public comment. But if you all board members, we think like we are the subject matter expert in the compounding, then we don't need a rec or work group. But if we think like, you know what, we should hear who is doing this for daily basis, those are the licensees who's serving the Oregonians. I think, and that's what it come to, like, we need work group and rec because we need help from the subject matter expert who is doing this on daily basis. And what I hear from most of the board member, look, I'm not expert in this. I don't know fully. There you go. We got our answer. And I feel like we should do it right. Then instead of going back again and again and changing like so many other division, is still not clean, you know? So, and this is like one of that one is like, I feel like it's really important that we do it right.
Member Kroger.
Member Kroger. I think you guys know that I want public input in a way that is able for us to digest and make whatever edits we feel are appropriate. I don't know the ins and outs of work group, RAC, rulemaking. I just want to hear from the public. And I know, I think traditionally, typically, when we send something to rulemaking, these rules are almost to the finish line, right? And so that, you know, even like today, like we can't make substantial changes to something. It's really only supposed to be, you know, minor changes after rulemaking, or else we, you know, kind of have to start over or what have you. So I don't fully know the ins and outs of all that. And this is a very different situation. These rules aren't ready, they aren't that close to the finish line, close enough to the finish line, where traditionally we went through rulemaking, or at least that was my understanding of how the board operated. Now, I think this is a really good start, and I think I think the conversations today and the points that we made are fabulous, and I'm hoping that board staff will be able to kind of work with what was brought up. My concern would be is that, you know, staff is going to work on something. How do we make sure that like whatever the public is commenting on, suggesting on, is the most current and updated, you know, piece of the rule? And I don't know how you get there. I don't know, I don't know all the rules, and I don't know if we have a work group, can we ask folks to publicly comment to the work group. So I don't know what ways we can get to ultimately getting that feedback that we need to be able to then discuss as a group what we feel is appropriate. What I fear is that if we don't receive public input at the beginning of this process, we might go through and think we've got these rules close to the finish line. And then we receive public input that is very opposite of that, and then it extends the process altogether. So that is my concern on waiting on public input, how we get that and the legal ways to do that. I don't have a suggestion for you, but that is my idea of the next steps, hopefully how we can go forward.
Member Smith?
Member Smith, I think the idea of doing some edits and then kind of revisiting things before this gets sent out to the public is a good idea.
Good.
Executive Director, and yes, thank you for that clear direction. I think we have enough to take this and do what we need to, and in order to bring it back in a way that's more comprehensive and perhaps digestible and more concise, so we can address this at the October meeting and perhaps get through it all before next steps.
Sure. So we're gonna go on to review and discuss the results of the board best practices survey with Executive Director Ryan. Are we not doing that? No, we're good.
Public comment is actually,
Oh, public comments.
the next, if you want to do that first and then,
Okay.
okay.
Sounds good. So.
Microphone, please.
Thank you. Oregon Board of Pharmacy, this is the public comment sign up. The board will not deliberate any issues or requests during public comment, such as formal requests, issues currently under investigation, or requests pending before the board, or currently proposed rules. Public comment is limited to matters noticed on the board meeting agenda. We have Natalie Gustafson here. Welcome, Natalie.
Yeah, just pull it towards you. There you go.
All right, can you hear me? Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm Natalie Gustafson. I'm a compounding pharmacist and director of pharmacy and owner of Lloyd Central Compounding Pharmacy. I have also been on both the compounding RAP in 2019 and also the compounding work group in 2023. So I've been all up in this business for quite some time. I just quickly wanted to say thank you to all of you, by the way, for reappointing me to the Formulary Council. I've really enjoyed being on it, so thank you for that at the last meeting. But anyway, why I wanted to talk today was this is really complicated, right? This whole area has undergone so much change over the last few years. And when we did the work group, this was before the USP even went live, right? So this was all theoretical discussion. We were trying to figure out what places we're going to do, what we were going to do. And even my opinions that I had in that work group have shifted a lot over the last 2 years because I've now implemented this because of what Director Runyon mentioned with Washington requiring compliance. So several of us in the state have already had to make these changes.
Yeah.
So the input.
Excuse me, just 1 second. Apparently, since comments not allowed on this specific rule.
So
I defer.
it's because of the fact that the public comment period already closed on these rules. We'd have to reopen it to take any new public comment. Which is like, kind of the whole thing of like what we were just talking about, like what the process is. If I know that's what you were coming to talk about, I would have been able to tell you that we couldn't take it now, but it doesn't mean that there won't be an opportunity eventually, depending on how the board goes. But at this point, we're not allowed to take any more public comment on these rules specifically.
Okay.
But we will want them. We will let you know.
Sorry to take your time then.
No,
Apologies.
sorry.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah, we're sorry to take your time, but truly, we will want to have your comments. We just have to get to the point where we can do that
Sure.
Okay.
according to the rules.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
for
Ellen.
coming then.
Board Member Kroger, I have a question on that. So the board will not deliberate.
Yeah.
That's our statement. I'm talking about the public meeting, the public rules process. Totally different. Totally different statute, totally different process. That's what you guys take public comment on. But once public comment period is closed, we can no longer take public comment on a rule,
On the topic,
on the topic of that rule, right?
on the topic of that rule, regardless if she's not referencing specifics within the rule.
Right.
Darn rules.
All right, so
Executive Director Running, Natalie, I would just like to personally thank you for not only the work that you've done previously on this topic, but for taking the time and to care enough to take the time to come here with the intent of speaking to us. I'm sorry it worked out that way, but I greatly appreciate your efforts, involvement, and concern. So thank you.
Board President Joyce, and thank you as well, Natalie, and I apologize for that. Moving on, we will now be discussing board best practices survey with Executive Director Runyon. Okay.
Executive Director Runyon, this is mailing F. So these are the results of the board best practices survey. Just for additional context or reminder, the Oregon legislature mandated that members of boards and commissions complete an annual self-evaluation to review adherence to recognize governance best practices. The purposes of the self-evaluation is to assist boards and commissions in developing governance oversight. This self-evaluation contained 15 questions about executive director expectations and feedback, strategic management, strategic policy development, fiscal oversight, and board management. Completion of the report is mandatory for all board members, and it was for the 2024 calendar year. So the results before you today will be included in the board's annual performance progress report. It's due to the legislature in October. We'll just go through each question. So executive director's performance expectations are current. You see the yes and no responses. So 85% yes, 15% no, roughly. And question 2, executive director receives annual performance feedback. Again, this is for calendar year 2024. We had an executive director, previous executive director Fox, and then interim director Rosa Klein. You see roughly the same response here, 85% yes, 15% no. In question 3, the agency's mission and high-level goals are current and applicable. Play the same response rate here, or the same response rate. Question 4, the board reviews the annual performance progress report. 6 yes, 1 no. Question 5, the board is appropriately involved in review of the agency's key communications. 5 yes, 2 no for this one. 6, the board is appropriately involved with policymaking activities. 4 yes, 3 no. 7, the agency's policy option packages are aligned with their mission and goals. 6 yes, 1 no. Board reviews all proposed budgets. Question 8, 5 yes, 2 no. Question 9, the board periodically reviews key financial information and audit findings. 5 yes, 2 no. Question 10, the board is appropriately accounting for resources. 5 yes, 2 no. Question 11, the agency adheres to accounting rules and other relevant financial controls. 6 yes, 1 no. Board members act in accordance with their roles as public representatives. Question 12, we have 5 yes, 2 no for that. 13, the board coordinates with others where responsibilities and interests overlap. 6 yes, 1 no. 13, the board coordinates with others where responsibilities and interests overlap. Did we just read that?
This is a duplicate. Yeah, sorry about that.
When questions overlap.
Twice.
Question 14, the board members identify and attend appropriate training sessions. 7 yes. 0 no on that. And question 15, the board reviews its management practices to ensure best practices are utilized. 6 yes, 1 no. And President Joyce, I'll turn it back to you for board discussion.
President Joyce, I'll just go around. Board Member Chen, any comments or feedback on the survey?
This is kind of good because this was not, we don't even have the executive director, so I don't think I have any comments. I'm looking forward to next year's survey.
You on the spot there, Gary. Board Member Patel,
Comments?
Board Member Kirkbride, any comments on the
Nope.
responses?
None.
I'm sorry, I'm Board Member Kirkbride. I get my case confused. Board Member Kroger?
Member Kroger, Kirkbride. Board
Board
Member
Member
Kroger, no
Kroger.
comments.
Okay. Board Member Smith?
Board Member Smith, no comments.
Board Member Hall?
No comment.
Board Member Kirkbride?
No comments.
Okay, Board Member Beal?
Board Member Pinedo, no comment.
Board President Joyce, yeah, I mean, I know some people have issues with the lack of anonymity in the answering the questions. I know that can't be helped because that's a state requirement. Also, some of the questions, like the question about the budget, was it reviewed? Yes, it was reviewed. Were we able to provide any feedback? No, we weren't, or at least I didn't feel that way. Anyways, otherwise, I know this is 2024's, and we had 2 different directors, and so, I don't have anything additional to add other than those comments. Thanks. Back to you.
G.
Executive Director Runyon will wrap up with mailing G here. And so as we did at the June. Yeah, wrap up my portion, yes. And so as I did at the June board meeting, I'll just combine the financial report with the strategic plan update. So there hasn't been much that's changed since the June board meeting in terms of the budget, aside from obviously the implementation of the temporary rule related to House Bill 5028, which we had the special board meeting for. So just some key highlights here. You see that revenue ending May 2025 is 4.1% under budget. However, if we look at the other categories underneath that, you see that a lot of the expenditures are under budget. And one thing I'd just like to point out, before we go any further, I want to emphasize the 2 things that you can expect from me, especially in terms of the budget and handling that and our financials, is just transparency and then responsibility or accountability. I don't think we can ask more of our licensees and registrants if we also don't do our corresponding part to be judicious consumers of the resources that we already have. And in the short time I've been at the helm, we've taken a hard look at operations to identify all potential opportunities for improvement, not only in our use of physical resources such as office space, hardware, software, et cetera, but also in terms of abstract resources such as employee time. And I'm proud to say that we've made progress by eliminating some programs altogether, downsizing others, and streamlining lines of accountability, and to ensure that we have the right touch, or where we're equipped to aptly handle all of our responsibilities without approaching inefficiency. Scroll a little further down, you'll see the ending cash balance there in May and the corresponding 5.8 months of operating expenses. And then the 2 big takeaways there, end of biennium projected cash balance of 10 months, and then the cash balance target, which represents 6 months of operating expenses there. So all in all, we're judiciously using resources, and we're in a healthy financial state. And then I'll just go over some high level updates for the strategic plan. And currently, the agency is compliant with and continues to meet all of the strategic plan initiatives set forth by the governor. And this report's a high-level update on staff's progress in implementing the board's 24 through 29 strategic plan since the last meeting, June 2025. While there haven't been significant changes in direction since the last comprehensive list of updates was provided, I think it's important to use incremental opportunities to ensure our actions are aligned with our values. In other words, is the way that we're spending our time reflective and supportive of the board's mission and directives. So some key actions: drafting and adopting new rules covered in the strategic plan. And we obviously covered a lot of those in the end of legislative report today. In the strategic plan, you'll find assessing uptake and impact of pharmacy technology solutions through collection of baseline and trend data. For example, here, subsequent to SB 236, obviously PPLs have been removed from the list of online applications, as we discussed earlier, but licensing staff has devised a new way to track the integration of this emerging technology through an alternative registration system embedded in the application and readily available in our licensing software. So not only will that option provide us with the data for future analytics, it will also ensure compliance officers are informed and equipped to properly inspect while out in the field, thereby ensuring patient health, safety, and welfare. In terms of collaborating and responding to proposals that support board goals through innovation and technology that address safety and access, we continue to receive intermittent feedback from interested parties regarding the potential value of further amendments to Oregon's smart laws, which were enacted in 2019. As appropriate, I forward some of this information to the Oregon Disabilities Commission and OHA's Health Equity Innovation and Implementation team for their consideration. As far as applying technology solutions to enhance accessibility to board information and resources, and specifically completing accessibility improvement for the board website. Staff has made significant progress in the software modernization project and is currently working internally on next steps, including the continued modification of our business case to substantiate our proposal for near-term submission. And from the operational standpoint, I've conducted one of two scheduled meetings to explore position descriptions for both filled and vacant positions on the leadership and executive teams to facilitate equitable, judicious, and strategic division of duties and responsibilities to meet both the governor's and the board's expectations. These discussions will facilitate the revision of PDs for vacant positions, which is the final step before working with HR to post them. I've also started constructing an agency-wide master task sheet that tracks all time-sensitive responsibilities delineated by position. As this comes together, I'm adding resources for each task, such as contact information, policies and procedures, or relevant standards of work, previous submissions, and so on. So not only will this help ensure that no task is left behind, it will also ensure that the agency can continue to function despite transitions in leadership, fluctuations in staffing levels, et cetera. It'll also help us ensure that each employee has the resources and support to execute everything that we're asking them to do. And staff is currently working with AG Hunt on updating all applications for both licensees and registrants to ensure clear direction, communication, and hopefully faster processing of licenses and registrations. We've made significant progress on RP applications and will continue to work others across the registration spectrums, time and resources allow. And in terms of communications, I'll wrap up with this. Two of Oregon's Medical Reserve Corps coordinators from the Nehalem and Cannon Beach areas contacted OSPA and had some questions regarding how to support their missions in medical cash with pharmaceuticals during a disaster like massive wildfire or earthquake. Brian Mayo reached out and requested our attendance, so we'll be providing some input as appropriate at that meeting later this month. A few other examples: I'm participating as a member of a review panel at OSU for 2 courses related to pharmacy law and ethics. Met with them this past week and I have another meeting coming up in a week or 2 for that. We're meeting with the faculty at Pacific University early September for a tour of the campus, to give a brief presentation and participate in a panel discussion with staff. And then lastly, I'm also presenting the law update at OSP's annual convention in September. So all examples that fall into the strategic plan involving communication and how we're getting out and about in the community and continuing to invest in building our relationships out in the community. So President Joyce, I'll turn it back to you.
All very good and encouraging. Any feedbacks or comments on? So are we gonna discuss the board meeting dates coming up? Okay. I do appreciate the fact that they do look like they are all scheduled for 2-day meetings.
Staff member Melvin, the board will discuss 3-day board meetings during the December 2025 board meeting for the calendar year of 2026 as requested. Thanks.
2026. So next up is making hearing dates or conferences and meetings. Do we need to discuss that? I think September 15 is the deadline to register for that conference.
Staff member Melvin, no discussion necessary.
Okay.
The next part of this would be consent agenda unless.
Very good.
Okay.
All right, so is there any board discussion on the consent agenda? Board member President Joyce, no. Board Vice President Kirkbride?
No.
No. Board member Chin?
No.
Board member Hall?
No.
Board member Kroger?
Nope.
Board member Patel? Board member Pineda?
No.
And board member Smith?
No.
So next
Motion?
is a motion, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as proposed?
So moved by, board member Chin.
And the board member Joyce. Board member Joyce, yes. Board member, Vice President Kirkbride,
Yes.
board member Chin,
Yes.
board member Hall,
Yes.
board member Kroger,
Yes.
board member Patel,
Yes.
board member Vineto,
Yes.
board member Smith.
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay, so we will now take the time for each board member to provide comments, ideas, policy discussion items for future board meetings. So this is the matters to be discussed section. So now it's kind of like your open mic opportunity to talk about specific topics that you want to prioritize or bring up to our attention. Board Vice President Kirkbride, I'll start with you.
I don't have any comments for this meeting. Thank you.
Comments, okay. Board Member Chin, any items to be discussed?
Thank you.
Member Hall?
I'll just, would like to talk about cold storage at some point, but that's it.
Okay. I think that's one of the top priorities we have. Board Member Kroger?
Board member Kroger, I am going to need to understand what just happened with public comment, please. When my non-legal analysis of the Administrative Procedures Act, that whenever possible, the public should be involved in the development of public policy by agencies in the drafting of rules. Later on in this, the act, it talks about if rulemaking is closed, an extension may not be provided unless it's provided equally to everyone. I am incredibly passionate about and desperate to hear from the public on what we are drafting and in process of drafting. And I don't necessarily need an explanation right this second because I really want to dig into this, but that is my request because we will not be successful in our mission as a board if we are unable to hear from the public. I don't understand when anybody could comment on something, like I'm very confused on how this works and I really need clarity on it. And then I need to make sure that the public is also very clear. so that we can continue to engage, because I do not want to see the public turned away again when they have something important to say and made the effort to come here in person and or take the time to write letters, what have you. So I'm very confused on what just happened and really want to make sure that we have that cleared up, because as like I said, my very brief review, I don't see why we can't hear from the public on any topic at any point in time. We don't need to deliberate it, discuss it, respond to it, but to listen and absorb it. And that's what's most important to me right in this moment. So thank you.
Board Member Pinedo?
Board Member Pinedo, thank you, Board Member Kroger, for that. I agree, like our licensees, the public, I think they should be able to come in and speak their mind on whatever it may be. We, again, do not have to discuss it. We do not have to comment on it, but for them to take the time to present to us, like that's what we want. We want licensees to be able to feel comfortable and confident in expressing their opinions on matters that are important to them as a licensee. And so I do think that what Board Member Kroger is saying is correct.
Board Member Smith?
Board Member Smith, no further comments at this time.
Okay, so President Joyce, just want to wrap it up.
Board Member Patel didn't.
I'm sorry, Board Member Patel, I can't believe I keep missing you. I can't see you. That's why. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. How did he even go from K to B? Anyways. Patel, I apologize.
No worries. You knew it, I had to say so many things. So, yes, so I'm going to chime on whatever Board Member Kroger said, and Panero shared the same sentiment. It is my understanding, according to our statute, and again, I don't remember the exact word, but they say that we have to make every effort, not only this board, but any board, they have to make every effort to listen to public comment to the last minute before we even adopt the rule. That is my understanding. I apologize, I don't know exact word or anything, but I do remember there's a statute on it, which is kind of says like maximum extended time to the point, like make every effort to hear the public comment. That is my understanding. So, again, that would help us a little bit. The second one is like, yes, in the next board meeting, I definitely want to hear more about when we are going to start talking about the cold storage, prescription locker rules, we have to fit that one in. And then this is the last thing about earlier we discussed about the DEA controlled substance later. There is a controlled substance later for the prescription locker box to DEA. And if you can pull up that later. I think the problem with the letter is, I know our intention is good. Our intention to, let the licensee or pharmacy to put the controlled substance in the prescription locker box, but with this later, it always says the storage. When you ask the DEA that do you require DEA license to store the drugs, that answer is always going to be yes. But here we are not storing the drugs, right? We are putting the dispensed medication or dispensed prescription ready to pick up, because prescription locker is the extended version of the will go. So if you say storage, that means yes, you require DEA license. So I think we have to ask them the right question to get the right answer. And if that is a storage, then when we get the delivery from our distribution, our wholesaler, we delivering the drug, we are doing the mail out. So USPS, FedEx, everyone have to have DEA license. If you consider putting dispensed prescription ready to pick up into the locker box as a storage area. So I think if we eliminate the first paragraph, whatever sentence says storage, get rid of that storage and say prescription ready for pickup from the prescription locker box. And that is our intent. And I think then we will get the right answer from the DEA.
Thank you, Board Member Patel. I just want to wrap it up. I feel the passion. Thank you, Board Member Kroger. Patient safety is why we're here. This is our priority. Secondly, clarity in the rules. That's easier said than done. So, other than that, are there any matters to be discussed by staff?
I'm the Executive Director Runyon. No matters to be discussed, just a warm thank you for a fun, positive, healthy, productive meeting. I think as board members, you should never lose sight of the fact that your words have significant weight and a resounding impact long after they're spoken. So in a few instances, to hear positive feedback and reinforcement given to staff in the confines of this meeting will go such a long way in terms of helping them to continue to stay motivated to do that work. So I can't thank you enough for that. It means a lot to me and a lot to staff. So just a big thank you for this, and I look forward to the next meeting.
Thank you. So before we adjourn, board members who took written notes before or during the board meeting, please add your name, date, and mark confidential if they were taken during executive session, and provide them to staff member Melvin. If you would like to keep a copy of your written notes, please go to the board office and staff will assist you with making a copy before you depart the building. If you took electronic notes aside of OneDrive, email your notes to Rachel Melvin at bop.oregon.gov.
Wait. Yeah, so we're not adjourning.
We're not adjourning it, yes. So
I can help with that. How we go back.
do I need to say?
Needs to read that.
So is there a motion to go into executive session?
There were two or 192 FH.
Can't hear you.
Say it again, pursuant to ORS 192.66012 FH. For purposes of considering information or records that are exempt from law, public inspection, and to consult with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed.
So board member Joyce.
Board Member Hall?
Board member Jim. Board member Patel.
Yes.
Board member Kroger.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Board member Hall.
Yes.
Board member Kirkbride.
Yes.
Board member Pinero.
Yes.
Okay, give me just a moment. I need to end this call and open an executive session.